We're joined by the Vice Chairman of the full committee. Senator Murray is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, we are in a deeply alarming moment where law and order is being replaced by chaos and corruption and really whatever Trump wants. And your department's independence and its capacity to do its job have eroded before our eyes. We have seen respected career officials who've been fired for doing their job. Thousands more are being pushed out with your buyouts and the threat of mass firings, and entire divisions are being eliminated, and grants have been canceled illegally. So I have questions about how and why those decisions are being made, and importantly, whether you're adequately resourcing DOJ to do its job. But before I turn to my questions, I do want to raise my alarm about the troubling pattern of trampling basic rights. Detainees, including U.S. citizens, being shipped overseas without any due process. Elected officials are detained for conducting oversight, and a U.S. senator gets tackled to the ground for asking questions at a press conference. This is not the country I know or the values I believe in, and I hope that colleagues on both sides of the aisle will agree with that. Now, to the questions. Yesterday, and I know that Senator Van Hollen raised this issue, a former DOJ attorney filed a protected whistleblower.
Senator Murray expressed deep concern over the visible decline in the department's ability to function independently and without bias. She cited the dismissal of respected career officials, people who dedicated their lives to justice, simply because they chose to follow the law instead of bowing to political pressure. The implications of this go far beyond administrative chaos. When justice is no longer neutral and begins to cater to the desires of one individual or political party, it opens the door to corruption, abuse of power, and a breakdown in the rule of law. The senator pointed out that not only have individuals been fired, but entire divisions have been dismantled. Thousands of workers have been driven out, either through forced buyouts or under the threat of mass firings. These aren't just faceless employees. They are investigators, analysts, lawyers, and public servants who once ensured that justice was delivered impartially and professionally. Their absence leaves a massive vacuum in the system. Even more troubling is the cancellation of key programs and grants without legal justification. These cancellations appear not to be based on merit or fiscal necessity, but on political convenience. By eliminating divisions that once challenged the administration's actions or policies, the leadership appears to be restructuring the DOJ into an extension of political power rather than an independent guardian of the Constitution. This transformation is not happening in the shadows. It's occurring in full view of the American public through hearings, investigations, and testimonies. Yet, despite the evidence, there is a persistent lack of accountability. Attorney General Bondi's testimony demonstrated a repeated unwillingness to acknowledge these concerns. Instead of addressing the erosion of institutional integrity, she deflected criticism and emphasized her loyalty to specific individuals within the department, namely Amal Bouv and Todd Blanche. This only reinforced the fear that the DOJ is being run based on personal allegiances rather than lawful procedures and ethical standards.
Will follow court orders, Senator. The entire administration will follow court orders. The problem arises in the district courts. All these district courts throughout the country are tying our hands. But here's how we will follow them when we get to the United Supreme Court.
I need to ask
we're
you
winning.
a number of questions.
And so, yes, we're following the orders of the court.
Let me ask my questions. Can you confirm you will not allow any conduct like what is alleged to continue at the DOJ?
I'm not going to talk about anything that's alleged. What I will talk about with you, hold on, you asked me a question and I get to answer it. What you asked me, alleged conduct that's part of a pending whistleblower lawsuit that was filed on the eve prior to Amal Bove's hearing today.
I'm not asking
highly
about that
suspicious.
Case
Hold on, let me keep going. I would run through a wall for Amal Bove and Todd Blanche.
Like to continue with my questions. I have very limited time. Senator Murray. Thank you. I just want you to confirm for this you will not allow conduct like that at the DOJ. Yes or no?
A former DOJ attorney stepped forward with claims that strike at the very heart of judicial integrity and governmental accountability. The complaint accuses Deputy Attorney General Amal Bouv and other senior officials of deliberately defying court orders. This isn't a vague or speculative accusation. It specifically outlines behaviors including a lack of candor, intentional delays, and the spreading of disinformation. These are not just bureaucratic missteps. They are potential violations of legal and ethical obligations that demand immediate scrutiny. What makes the situation even more concerning is the alleged retaliation against the whistleblower. According to the complaint, the attorney was fired for telling the truth to the court, a chilling message for anyone within the department who might consider speaking out. The Justice Department, by design, is meant to uphold the law, not silence those who seek to expose wrongdoing. When truth-telling becomes grounds for dismissal, it signals that the leadership may be more focused on protecting its image and loyalists than adhering to its core mission of impartial justice. Senator Murray pressed Attorney General Bondi on these claims during the hearing, but Bondi's responses were evasive. Rather than addressing the content of the allegations, she sidestepped the issue, refusing to confirm whether she would tolerate such conduct under her leadership. When asked directly if she would allow the type of behavior described in the whistleblower complaint to continue, Bondi didn't reassure the public by denouncing the actions. Instead, she pivoted to express unwavering support for Amal Bouv and Todd Blanche, two of the figures at the center of the complaint. Her words weren't about transparency or accountability. They were about loyalty. This type of response only heightens concerns. If those in power refuse to even acknowledge serious accusations, let alone investigate them, it raises red flags about the department's internal culture. A healthy and functioning justice system should welcome oversight and be committed to self-correction. Instead, we're seeing the suppression of whistleblowers and a reflexive defense of those in charge. That not only discourages truth-telling but actively enables misconduct to persist. Furthermore, the timing of the complaint is significant. It was filed just before a scheduled hearing involving Amal Bouv, suggesting the whistleblower may have acted out of a sense of urgency to bring the issue to light. Yet the administration's reaction appears less focused on the gravity of the claims and more concerned with damage control. In doing so, they risk undermining public confidence in the DOJ, particularly at a time when trust in institutions is already fragile.
Yes, but if you want to come to me directly, I would be happy to sit down with you and look at that and help you.
I'm happy. I appreciate that.
Again, we're doing everything we can.
Okay, but let me just ask you, when you cut off the expanding access to sexual assault forensic examination grant, were you aware that that grant helps our authorities prosecute rape and sexual assault?
I have no idea about that specific grant you're talking about. That's why I said if you want to come sit down with me, I would never cut a grant intentionally that has anything to
those
do.
Recipients on the other end across the country.
Can you give me the details of that grant?
I can absolutely do that, and my staff will get that to you. But those are two critical ones that I just wanted to ask you about today.
Again, we've turned many grants back on, and we'll continue to. If you want to call me, and we can discuss them with you.
Okay, in your budget request, you propose consolidating the Office on Violence Against Women into the Office of Justice Programs. In 2002, Congress actually codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office to implement the Violence Against Women Act.
Among the grants eliminated was funding for initiatives aimed at investigating and prosecuting drug-related crimes, a serious and growing concern in many American cities. Others supported children in the foster care system, especially those who had endured abuse or neglect. Still more were dedicated to expanding access to forensic examinations, which are vital in prosecuting sexual assault cases. The cancellation of these programs doesn't just delay justice, it denies it. Victims who might have found a path toward healing and resolution are now left with uncertainty and fewer resources to support them. During the hearing, Attorney General Bondi was asked pointedly whether she was aware of what these grants supported when they were cut. Her answer was alarming. She had no idea about the specific grants mentioned. This response reveals a lack of oversight and responsibility at the highest level of leadership. When someone in her position shows ignorance about programs that impact public safety on such a large scale, it raises fundamental questions about how these decisions are made, and by whom. It also underscores a deeply troubling pattern. Life-faltering policies are being enacted without informed consideration of their consequences. Bondi attempted to soften the impact by suggesting that only 6% of total grants were affected and that there was an appeals process in place. But this argument fails to acknowledge the scale of harm already inflicted. Public safety organizations were forced to lay off staff and scale back or eliminate services almost immediately. The appeals process, no matter how robust, cannot reverse the damage done in the interim. Survivors of sexual violence may now wait longer for justice, or never see it at all. Vulnerable children might be pushed further into the margins. Communities already struggling with crime and trauma are now left with even fewer tools to respond effectively. Moreover, Bondi's vague offers to sit down and personally review individual grant cases with senators sound more like political gestures than real solutions. It's not enough to promise selective reconsideration after the fact. What's needed is a commitment to prioritize justice, equity, and public safety above administrative reshuffling or political gain. Yet, her unwillingness to fully acknowledge the value of these grants or commit to restoring them speaks volumes about the DOJ current direction.
Now your department wants to fade that into the OJP, which violates the intent of the law that we passed. It makes grant programs less effective, and it places a lot more barriers for victims and services they need. And I see that you're cutting the office's resources by about a third. So will you commit to us, the Appropriations Committee, to follow the law and maintain OVW as a separate grant entity?
I will follow the law, but I will not keep that as a separate grant entity. You and I can disagree all day long on what the law is.
Well,
that's being consolidated into the Office of Justice Programs.
So
I'm not going to cut, let me answer, I'm not going to cut anything that's going to hurt violence against
not
women.
Not my question.
It will eliminate
I'm asking, just for your information, Attorney General, in 2002, we codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office. So that you need to go back and take a look at that. I know my time is out, but I thank you very much for the time.